My startup got rejected 7 times over 7 years from Y Combinator. Y Combinator is the Harvard, the Stanford of startup incubators around the world. It's actually even harder to get into Y Combinator than to get into Harvard or Stanford. And it took me 7 attempts, 7 rejections over 7 long years till I finally made it in. And today, my SaaS startup is making over 50 million in revenues, the go-to CRM for small businesses all around the world. We are a Y Combinator company. Eventually, we got in and we learned so much and we grew so much and benefited so incredibly from the experience. So I decided today to make a video for you to hopefully save you a ton of time and help you avoid the 7 deadly sins that prevented us from getting into Y Combinator. All right, sin number 1, you don't have a track record. So YC loves it to back people that already have a track record of building things people want, of succeeding, of creating, of overcoming. And that's obviously a really, really strong signal. It's not the only signal, but it is a really strong signal. In my case, when I first applied to Y Combinator, I was just a 23-year-old kid somewhere in Europe who had never done a tech startup, had no track record, so no history to speak of that would suggest and signal that I was born for success or that they should back me. I had not even, studied at a great university. I hadn't partnered up with some other people to build some cool project. I didn't have anything impressive to show for in my history, so I got rejected. Now, YC doesn't just look at your history. It's much more interested in your present as a predictor for your future. But if you have a strong history and a strong track record, it amplifies the signal, it amplifies the red flags, or the green flags in this case, in order to back you. Now, I didn't have any track record, and it took me 7 years to build a little bit of a track record and to actually create a bit of a know-how of how to do a startup and how to do it successfully. And in those 7 years, I built a bit of a reputation. I actually met a lot of YC founders, got connected to them, showed them and shared with them my journey, my failures, and some of my successes. I had built some relationship with angel investors in Silicon Valley. And so by my 7th attempt that I actually got accepted by YC, I had a bit of a reputation which helped me because I got a number of recommendations from other Y Combinator founders to support my application. So as I said, having a track record is great. If you don't have one, it's a bit of a yellow flag in your application, but it's not the most essential thing. The most essential thing is probably deadly sin number 2, which is not building anything or anything substantial. Too many people, they just daydream about their startup. They want to put together presentations, business plans. If you're not a builder, you can't make it into YC. And they want to see that you can build and build quickly and scrappy and adjust and learn and expand as you go. And again, this was one of those sins where the first 2 applications I think that I made for YC were full of PowerPoint presentations and business plans and business models and ideas, but there was no MVP, no minimal viable product, no product in general, and no showing that I was capable of building something. Now, this is many, many years ago. I'm a YC old-timer, or OG if you want to call it that way. But today, with all the tools with AI that's available, not building something immediately and quickly to validate your idea is an absolute KO criteria and will definitely land you in like startup hell from a YC perspective. There's no way you're going to make it into YC if you can't show that you've built something that people can play with, use, try out to really get an experience for the product that you're attempting to build and scale long term. So not building something is an absolute no-go. Sin number 3 is you haven't talked to enough users yet. This is what YC is all about. Build something that people want. There's 2 incredibly important points in here. One part is focused in the sentence on building. The other one is on people wanting what you built. How do you know if people want what you build? You talk to them, you show it to them, you interact with them, you learn from them. YC is incredibly user and customer focused. If you're building something you're charging for, you have to obsess over your customers. You have to talk to them day and night. You have to learn from them. You have to listen to them. And so when you apply for Y Combinator, you have to prove to them that you're talking to a lot of people. If you have not talked to a lot of users, a lot of customers, they're just not interested. Even once we got into YC, my very first walk with Paul Graham, the legendary founder, billionaire of Y Combinator, the very first walk, one-on-one that we had, he tried to distill what is the absolute most crucial metric for success for you. And once we had determined that, which was fully enrolled, signed up users with our credit card, he said, okay, here's your job today. You need to get, how many enrolled paying users do you have? And I don't know what it was at the time, let's say 10. He said, all right, 10. If you want to grow over 10% this week, you just have to get one person to sign up. In the best case scenario, do it today. I looked at him and I said, Paul, do you have your credit card with you? And he started laughing and it was like, this is the attitude. And I actually got him to enroll right there and then. And once we got back into YC's headquarters in Mountain View, he looked around and there were a bunch of different startups all huddling around the tables, working on their laptops. And he said, here's what you need to do. You need to go from table to table, from startup to startup, pitch them your idea, show it to them, and see if you can enroll a couple more people so you develop more growth and you can learn more from them. And actually, funny enough, a couple of years later, not maybe years, months later, I was meeting with Brian Chesky, the legendary founder of Airbnb, at their office to talk about some, co-collaboration, partnership, promotion. And at the end of my conversation with Brian Chesky, he said the exact same thing as PG had said. He looked outside his office and there was a huge office full with lots and lots of employees working. And he said, you know what you guys should do? You should go from person to person, show them the app, and see if you can get a couple of Airbnb employees to sign up right now and right here. So you can tell how much it's part of the YC DNA. You have to talk to your users. You have to talk to your customers. You have to engage with real people. You can't just be building something in your office or in your basement. You have to go into the real world and engage with real people around it. Which leads us to sin number 4. You haven't learned anything surprising yet. Now, this is really crucial. This is a big Y Combinator hack that you can learn from, which is that if you build and you build quickly, and if you talk to lots and lots of people, you should be learning unintuitive things. You should be learning surprising things. You should be generating surprising insights. Surprising insights means something people couldn't have intuitively assumed before actually building the thing you build and talking to real people in the real world. YC is all about that. It's part of the application. They'll ask you, what surprising thing have you learned since you've built this thing 3 weeks ago and you've talked to 50 people? You better have a good answer. You better have an answer that is surprising. Your answer better not be something like, well, we've talked to lots of people and they'd like to have more features. Right? You can't answer in very general terms because that means that you're thinking very generically and you're asking questions and paying attention in very superficial ways. What they're looking for are golden little nuggets, insights, things that will make people's head turn and go, that's a cool little factoid. That's a surprising thing they learned. In our case, I remember one of the apps that we played around with during our YC time was an app that for it to work, it needed you to put in your online banking username and password. That's a big shocker. Now, here's what wasn't surprising. What wasn't surprising is that if we try to promote people directly to the page, people wouldn't sign up, right? They didn't feel comfortable giving us that kind of information. But what we did learn is that when we partnered up with a big organization that the user really trusted, in our case, a big charity, a big nonprofit at the time, then people would sign up. Right? They had so much trust with this massive nonprofit that they've been donating to for many, many years that when that nonprofit would promote a page, a landing page with the nonprofit's logo and our logo, and it would ask people for their online banking credentials and username. This was for a donation charity app idea we had. Then people signed up, no problem. We had really great conversion rates. That was kind of an interesting little take in terms of distribution. How do you get to users? You have to get to users through an entity they trust. This is just an example to give you an idea. When we launched Close as a CRM, we launched so quickly. We had all these communication tools. We allowed you to make calls or receive calls, to do two-way email syncing. It was the most productive sales tool that existed at the time, January 2013. But you know what we hadn't had the chance to build yet when we launched? Reporting. So we were selling a CRM, telling people this CRM will help you sell more, but we're sorry, we cannot tell you how much more because the CRM has zero reporting. Reporting being a pretty crucial part of CRM. But we didn't wait till we had all the features needed. We launched immediately and we started pitching people on the communication flow and on the workflow improvements, and that ultimately we would help them close more deals, even if we didn't have reporting at the time. And you know what happened? People would sign up and we learned, wow, people will buy this, although it's missing an absolutely crucial piece of the software because they love the communication productivity gains so much. Eventually, we had to build reporting, and we do. And today, Close is the most powerful and the most, successful in some ways CRM for small and medium-sized businesses all around the world. If you want to talk to more of your users and more of your customers, sign up for a free trial. Go to www.close.com close.com. Sign up for a free trial, no credit card required. And for 14 days, you can put in all your users, all your customers, all your prospects. You can make calls, you can send them text messages, email with them. You can have virtual meetings to demo your idea or your product to them. You can level up your communication, both the volume and the quality. It's on us. And at the end of it, if you've gotten a couple of customers and closed some deals, it pays for itself. So you can decide to use it and continue sort of scaling your sales efforts in your startup with it. But enough of all of that. Let's talk about the next sin that prevented me for 7 years from getting into YC and forced Y Combinator to reject me 7 times in a row. Sin number 5, you're not moving fast enough. Now think about this. If you are great at building things, if you are great at talking to people, learning, observing, creating unusual and unintuitive insights, you can use that knowledge and those insights to continue iterating what you built and hopefully to get closer and closer and closer to something that people really want, that customers really love. Now, what is one more factor in that success, recipe that you need in order to be competitive in the world? Speed. That's what it is. You could be doing all these things, but if you do them very, very slowly, if it takes you, 2 years to build an MVP, you're still building, you're just building too slowly. By the time you have a version 1, others have already version 5. So they're learning faster, they're moving faster, they're building faster, they're growing faster. You're gonna lose, and YC knows that. So YC focuses on people and startups that move incredibly fast. They wanna see that in your application. They wanna gain from your application that in a very short period of time, you're moving very quickly, and ideally that you're building momentum. My 7th application at YC, the one that ultimately got us to an interview and got us accepted into Y Combinator, that application read so beautifully and so strongly on all those points. Hey, a month ago we had this idea. A week later we had an MVP. 2 weeks later we had our first 10 paying users and customers. Last week we got promoted on these different press mentions and we got to partner up with a big nonprofit. And today we got our first angel investor check of $250K offered at this valuation. See how when you are at YC and you're a partner at Y Combinator, see how reading that application was very impressive? Wow, a lot has happened at this company in a very, very short period of time. I'll get to that in the final sin of today's video, but the whole point is that you have to show that you're moving quickly and you're building momentum, that you have a bias towards action, that you have a bias towards collapsing timelines. When others think, we should be able to get this done in 2 to 3 weeks, you go, what do we need to do to get it done in 1? What do we need to get it done today? Why 2-3 weeks? You're the kind of person that challenges timelines, that challenges the comfort of, taking your sweet time to get to things. Because in a very competitive world, and in a world like startups and technology, where things change consistently, speed kills. And so they want killers. They want startups that are going to move faster than everybody else to get to the insight, to get to the user, to get to the customer, to get to the technology breakthrough. So if you're not moving fast enough, and I for sure for 7 years was moving very, very slowly, you're not gonna get into YC. What's the next sin? Sin number 6 is you have not proven that you're resilient, that you can overcome objections and problems. Now again, if you're very, very young and you've built something in a very short period of time and what you've built is really creative, really cool, and you've talked to lots of people and you've learned some incredible things, maybe some of these sins will be forgiven to you and you'll still make it into YC heaven. But if you can prove and show in some way or another that you're resilient, as PG used to say, that you're like cockroaches, you cannot be killed, right? The famous story of the Airbnb founders selling cereal during the big elections to generate some cash flow to be able to float their startup. There's so many stories of successful startups in YC that had near-death experiences. And YC knows that to be successful, you're gonna have to be hard to kill. You're gonna have to be able to survive in the trickiest of situations. You need to be, scrappy and resourceful. And so if you can, in your application, prove that you had to deal with some really hard circumstances in the past, that you had near-death experiences either in your startup or in your real life or in some other situation where you had to really endure hardship or really manage some really difficult problems, it's going to be a strong buy signal from YC. It's going to be a strong signal to approve your application and to accept you into Y Combinator, because they know you're going to have it. You had some of them in the past, you will have some in the future. No startup, no company in technology will make it through without some incredibly difficult, challenging, dangerous times. They want to back on the ones that are hard to kill, the ones that show resilience. And sin number 7, the final deadly sin that got me rejected from YC for 7 years in a row, 7 applications. You're not going to make it without YC. What does that mean? If your application suggests that you need Y Combinator in order to succeed, it's going to be unattractive. YC wants to invest in startups and startup founders that will succeed with or without them. They're already on a train to success. And YC wants to be a springboard, an accelerator, a true accelerator in helping you succeed even faster, even bigger, even better. But they don't want to be the determining factor for your success. Now, there's many other incubators around the world. There's many investors and VCs around the world that love the idea of being so important and so crucial that you couldn't succeed without them. They want to tell the story in the future, in the startup lore of your success, that they played an incredible part, that without them, you would have never been as successful as you are. But YC is different. They don't want to be crucial. They don't want to be a huge part of your success. They know they might, but they don't want to. And they for sure don't want you to rely on it or you to think this way. You cannot be in your application all about, if I only make it to YC, I will succeed, because you guys are going to help me build a team. You're going to help me find a co-founder. You're going to help me build the right product. You're going to help me get customers. You're going to help me get press. You're going to help me get investors and raise millions. You're going to help me. No. You need to prove that you're on the way to success and that your success is happening with or without them. And then, if they're convinced that you're on the right trajectory, maybe they want to accept you, allow you in to hopefully accelerate your success, but they don't want to be key to your success. My first couple of applications, I had nothing going on, barely any product or prototype, no team, no co-founder, no press, no money, no customers, no big insights. I was daydreaming. In my last final application, the one that got accepted, I had all. I had co-founders, a team, a product, customers, traction, press, investors. So all the things that somebody might want from YC, I was already rocking and rolling. Now, being accepted to YC made everything better. We learned so much. We built better. We iterated better. We pivoted a couple of times better in really crucial times. We raised more money from better investors. We got better press. We built a better network. It elevated, it accelerated us. But we were going to succeed one way or another. And if your success relies on them, they won't want you and they won't accept your application. So those are the 7 sins over 7 years I committed that made YC and forced YC to reject me 7 times in a row. Now, I was very resilient. I kept applying. I kept trying. My first startup didn't succeed. I moved from Europe to Silicon Valley with a one-way ticket, and I banged my head against the wall many, many times, and I created many, many failures, and my learnings were very slow. It took me a long time to get to success. Now, today, I'm running a hugely successful business, right? And I'm doing really, really well. But hopefully, by sharing some of my hardship, by sharing all these mistakes that I made, and by sharing the simple fact that I got rejected, not 1 time, not 2, not 3, but 7 times from YC, and then I got in. Hopefully, I can encourage you to move faster, build faster, talk more with users, talk more with your customers, and to learn things that are unintuitive, to listen better, to pay more attention to patterns, to insights, to hopefully be resilient, and when things don't go your way, to find ways around, to find ways to overcome, and ultimately to build something that if you want to get into Y Combinator, they will accept your application and you will succeed. Best of luck with it.